Whether you're at the beginning of your spiritual journey or starting over again after a disillusionment with a religion or a spiritual belief, this video will help you find your personal truth. So as a recovering Catholic, my journey had to be reconstructed. My spiritual experiences had to be reconstructed. And luckily, I had this wonderful lady up here behind me, my mother, who had her master's degree in liturgy, was head of liturgical doctrine at our Catholic Church. That means that when the priest wanted to do a sermon at our church, he literally had to pass it by my mom, and she had to give church approval for the sermon to be spoken in the pulpit. It had to meet the church doctrines. And what's so fascinating about that is my mom gave me one of the greatest gifts of my life. She said, "Jhon, spirituality is a personal journey." And as she grew older, she and I talked long and deep about spiritual concepts. And at one point, she went to her Catholic priest and she said, "Father, I'm concerned about my son. He thinks he's a reincarnated apostle." And her Irish Catholic priest looked both ways and said, "Don't discount it. It might be true." But that gift she gave me of saying spirituality is a personal journey. At 18 years old, I had to reconstruct my faith. I had to go through a process of really finding what I believe. And as I started to study everything I could find, Buddhism, Hinduism, Baha'i, Wicca, agnosticism, atheism, as I started studying, I started finding that in every spiritual practice or non-spiritual practice, there's always someone who's going to tell you what you're supposed to believe, and they're telling you what the truth is. And the concept of spirituality as a personal journey comes back to the concept of I am my own judgment. I am my own discernment of what's right for me. The Buddha had a famous quote that I absolutely adore. It says, "Believe nothing, no matter where you read it or who said it, no matter if I have said it, unless it agrees with your own reason and your own common sense." I think this quote is very much in alignment with what my mother said when she said spirituality is a personal journey. You have to find what's true for you. Now, for me personally, my journey took me down many different paths studying, but I kept finding universal truths in all of them. One of them is love is the basis of God. Whether you believe God is love or whether you believe that God, an external God, is a loving God, that you can find that in almost every religion or school of spiritual thought. Of course, atheism doesn't believe in a God, and agnosticism says there's something that they're just not defining what it is. So it comes down to, what is your common belief about God? When the Dalai Lama said, "My religion is simple, my religion is kindness," I kind of lean that way. It's kind of beautiful. When the Prophet Muhammad says, "He who knows not kindness has no faith," I kind of lean that way. It kind of feels right to me to be kind to people, to love one another, as Jeshua would say. So when I look at my own personal journey and my own reconstructing of my own spiritual faith, the problem that I ran into was deconstructing all of the beliefs that I didn't believe or didn't feel right to me. And I had to go back in and I had to discover what my beliefs were. And so the quickest way to actually get past that place is to first discern what you believe. One of the things you have to say, and it's another video I did, was you have to discover whether you believe God is loving or God is something to fear. And for me, God is love. God is loving. The book of Jhon says God is love and no fear can exist in perfect love. And so my goal is to come to a place of realization of fearlessness. The Buddha said the secret to enlightenment is the eradication of fear. So in studying both, the book of Jhon and the writings of Buddha, I find this concept of fearlessness. In the Sufi religion, or the Sufi version of Islam, they believe God is on one side of a veil and we're on the other side of the veil, and the life is a struggle against the veil, but the veil is our fear. So you find this correlation through many, many different schools of thought and religion, this what I would call a universal truth, that fear is what we overcome while we're here in the physical, while we're here in the physical form. The tough part, as I say, is we've been taught from a very young age that we are born in sin, or we are unworthy, and we are subjugated to a God we should fear. And those beliefs become very, very problematic for us, because those beliefs are in conflict. They are a cognitive dissonance. We say God is love, but how can God be judgmental and angry and jealous? And we need to fear that God. If God is loving, do we need to fear loving God? And so there's a conflict within the spiritual belief that we've been trained to believe. And I say trained because most of us who were Catholics or coming up in a Christian religion of some variety, or any religion really, our parents have given us that belief. Well, right in the Bible it says, you must become as a child to enter the kingdom of heaven. Well, a child has no belief. A child is born with no belief. The beliefs are given here in the physical. Those problematic cognitive dissonances that keep us in turmoil, trying to figure out whether we are worthy or believing we're not. And in that regard, when we look at the concept of what do I believe, and we strip back and go back to that child, that child's belief, he comes out and he's looking at the world through this feels good and this doesn't feel good. This is loving and this is fearful. They smile and they laugh, or they cry and they wail. Those two polarities, love and fear, that is found everywhere in our natural primal response as a child before belief. Adam and Eve talked about eating from the tree of knowledge and getting kicked out of paradise. Getting in our heads and going down this tree of knowledge where we're told we learn that this religion says this and that he died for our sins, and all this knowledge gets in our head, and it harms our direction going forward. In Buddhism, there's the most famous quote in history is, life is suffering. But the original language is a conceptual language, and English is a literal language. And to translate this correctly, the actual quote is, life is suffering because of our habitual response to our past experience. So it comes down to that habitual response is based on the idea of what we've been taught, what we've been told is true. But we have to come back to our own spiritual journey and decide what's true for ourselves. When Joshua says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, he's living his way, his truth, and his life. He's following his own way. There are many mansions in my Father's house. There are many ways to get there. Your truth is your personal truth. It's your personal journey. When someone comes along and tells you what you're supposed to believe, that's because they have been trained to believe that way. Each one of us finds our own way back to God. Each one of us finds our own way back to the source, to yada yada, whatever you want to call it. I call it God because my mom was Catholic. But it comes down to this idea that our common challenge is overcoming our religions, overcoming our spiritual teachings that we've been trained from childhood. Bible also says, be born again. It means right here, right now, start new, start fresh. So the problem is releasing that past, saying that part of my life is done, and right now I'm starting from a clean slate. Is God love or is God fear? And when you choose that God is love, then you start to realize that all the fearful moments of your life were based in this idea of fear. Well, what is fear? Fear in the present moment, it's just an emotional reaction, but it's an emotional reaction to past experience, just like that Buddha quote says. And it's an expectation of something negative happening in the future. So it's a matter of releasing our fears and anxieties to come back to this present moment, the I am moment, and find our own way. Find our own way. Now, when you dive into your own personal journey, it has to come down to you exploring what you believe. For me personally, like I said, I studied a lot of different religions. I did. You see these few books back here. There's an entire bookshelf over there filled with other books. I studied. I learned. I went and I talked to gurus and teachers and psychic mediums. I've went through all of them, but it always comes down to me making my own choices, my own discernments, and be it old age dogma or new age dogma, someone will always be telling you what you're supposed to believe. And if you succumb to their beliefs, then that is the choice that you make, right? But I would say if you're exploring something new and someone's telling you something, if it feels good to you, because love feels good, fear does not. If it feels complex or convoluted, love is simple. Fear is complex and convoluted. Make it as simple as possible. Come back to your most simple element. I am love. Moses said God's name was I am. So I am love is declaring in God's name that you are love. Whatever you ask in God's name is granted. I am love. That's the greatest prayer you could ever tell, because in that reality, you are creating a new experience where love is part of the process. And in that process, you find yourself in an expression of simplicity, being that loving space. Oftentimes because of this channel, because of my other channel, I get people come on and call me the Antichrist, or they say I'm a false prophet, or they yell at me for not teaching the gospel and all those things. And all I see is people who are stuck in their own fears, their own anxieties, they're trapped in the dogmas of their religion. And here's my measure. Here's what I measure their words against. I laugh every day. I love every day. I get beautiful messages every day. And for every one of those messages I get from one of them, I get 500 telling me that people are resonating with what I'm saying and love what I'm doing. And when I look at those messages that call me the Antichrist, I think that person's reaching out in anger and fear and anxiety, and they're trying to knock somebody else down for not believing the same way they do. That doesn't feel right to me. I'm laughing. I'm enjoying my life. I'm loving. I'm surrounded by people who love me in return. And what happens? Whose spirituality is working for them? I'm happy. I'm joyful. I'm loving and not harming anyone. And they're reaching out to harm another because they don't believe the same. Somebody's spirituality is not working for them because somebody's spirituality is based in fear and anxiety and judgment. I have to say I'd rather live a life of joy and happiness than one of feeling the need to reach out and attack anybody who's against what I believe. I do that spiritual math again. 30% of the world claim to be Christian, and less than 15% of them are actually practicing. So if we stick with the 15% number, 85% of the world does not believe what Christians believe. But those Christians will judge everybody else in the world against their own belief, saying that they're all wrong, they're all going to burn in hell because they haven't taken the gospel. That's a cult. That's not a religion. They're trying to get you into the religion. And when you look at the context of this is what feels right for you. Do you want to live feeling angst and anger and anxiety? Or do you want to create a life living in love and abundance and joy and surrounded by people you love and loving your fellow man? I leave you one commandment, love one another. It always comes back to this idea of the be loving, be caring. My religion is simple. My religion is kindness. He who knows not kindness has no faith. You find these expressions everywhere. These expressions are the universal truth of love and kindness. Fear and anxiety in almost every spiritual tradition is all about something we overcome, something we banish. No fear can exist in perfect love. And so this exploration that you're embarking on, this new change of releasing the negativity, the fears, the anxieties, it always comes down to this idea of your journey is your journey. And you can believe anything you want. It's your choice. But I would measure your journey and your choices upon what feels loving, what feels caring. When you look at another person, do you look at them in fear or do you look at them in love? Do you look at them as an equal with you? You know, Jesus says in the Bible, and I say Jesus when I talk about Bible sometimes because that's the religious name. But, you know, my past life memory stuff, his name was Yeshua. And it's Yeshua with a YJ mix in the beginning word. But when you look at what he said, the Father and I are one, and you must become one with me as I'm with the Father. He's talking about oneness. You know, in other religions, you have non-duality. You have this oneness expression. It's also one of the universal truths, oneness. Whatsoever you do to the least of my brothers, that you do unto me. That expression is to be loving, not to judge them for not believing the same as you, not to try to sway them to your personal beliefs, but to just simply love them. Just simply love them. I often tell the story of traveling through Egypt, and everywhere I go, everyone's treated me beautifully. But I love them first. I love them first. Then I run into another American who was expecting conflict in judging them for being Muslim, right? And because he was a Christian and he had this fear and anxiety about the Muslims. You know, I went there not exclaiming a religion, not claiming to be anything except for loving. And I was treated with love and kindness everywhere I went. He was treated with people wanting to fight him everywhere he went. Your expression in life, your experience in life will be a direct reflection of what your spiritual beliefs are. And if you believe in a loving world and you believe that in loving someone first, you're going to get love in return. It always comes down to this idea of your spiritual beliefs are your spiritual beliefs. But the best way to discern which spiritual beliefs are working for you is to literally come back to, how do you feel? Do you feel loved? Do you feel loving? Do you feel caring? Do you feel joyful? Are you feeling happy? Someone once asked me, what books do I recommend? And my my reply was, I suggest comedies because you're never closer to God than when you're laughing. I think all the ancient texts are from a time thousands of years ago and have no real relevance to our world today. Be loving, be caring, be the love you want to see in the world. You know, Gandhi says, be the change you want to see in the world. I say, be the love you want to see in the world. Be the expression so people can express it back to you. You know, those ideas of spirituality being a personal journey that my mom talked about, those ideas are exactly yours. You have all the power to choose. The question is, what do you want to choose? Do you want to choose a happy life, a loving life, a joyful life? Or do you want to be judgmental and hateful and harmful to others who don't believe the same as you? Do you want to scare them to your belief? Do you want to tell them that that they should fear God? Or do you want to find that God is love and live into that loving acceptance, to realize that you're one with God, the Father, and you are one? And you come back to that expression of yourself as love, as a representation of God on earth, as the person who is here. Joshua said, ye are gods. Ye are gods. And in that godly nature of yourself is love, because God is love. So be love, live love, express love, show the people to the world that you are a representation of your own beliefs. And as you're starting off on your journey and you're moving forward into this new direction, you know, you get to choose your choices. The only thing I would say is, if you want a really quality life, put love at the core of your spiritual beliefs and live into love. And all of the complexities of it get to be the pathways away from ourselves. You know, Jeshua said in one of my regressions, he said, when you seek a path is laid before you, But until you turn the path back to yourself, you never find the doorway. The religions, the constructs, the old age dogmas, the new age dogmas, 5D and ascensions, and those are all just pathways away from yourself. Live in the now. It's the only moment you'll ever live. The past is done. The future is just a place where you set goals, and you can't go to the store next Thursday right now. It's only right now that you can live a loving life and have a loving life expressed back to you. It's the only moment you have. So I would say, well, whatever journey you go down, whatever path you choose, whatever truth you find for yourself, the only thing I would ask is that occasionally assess whether you feel loving and whether you feel like laughing and joyful in your chosen belief, and discern whether that's what you truly believe or not. Because your outcome in life, your experience of life, will be what you believe in the now. And so it really comes up to you to making your own personal choice. I would never ask you to take mine. I'm just sharing my truth, my way, and my life on my two channels. But it really comes down to you choosing your way, your truth, your life, and being on a journey of self-discovery and seeking your authentic life experiences. And spirituality is, the word spirituality talks about the non-corporeal, the feelings, the non-physical experience. Come back to that non-physical experience and say, I'm making it joyful. I'm making it loving. I'm making it happy. And come into that space of realizing that you can do that. Now, something I'd like to say here at the end of this video, I know this has been a fairly long one today. I want to say, come back to yourself and then go out into the world and find someone. As you're walking into a convenience store, you see somebody who normally might scare you. Maybe it's that guy who looks like he might be a street thug, or maybe it's a big burly bearded man like me, or maybe it's somebody who just doesn't fit your skin color, your any of those things. Look at that person, smile at that person, and hold the door for them. And watch how it makes you feel, and watch how they react. And you will find that is love. That simple gesture is love. And if we all did that for everyone, no matter our race, creed, color, whatever aspect that seems different, if we treated each other that way, the people who are living fearful lives would start to see a loving world. And then they would ask you why you're so happy. And then you could say, because I believe I am love. Or whatever you choose in that moment. So that's my thought on this, guys. I hope you guys are having a great Sunday morning. And I will talk to you soon. See ya. Bye.